It's gonna take a lot to take me away from you. Hi. This is my name is Daidarius and welcome to the spoiler review of Black Panther. That's right, this is my spoiler review, or some will call it my pros and cons series. That means that this really will touch upon spoiler aspects of this movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, don't worry, I have a spoiler-free review. Just click the annotation right here or in the description down below. Otherwise, this is your spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Okay, so I'm gonna do this shit again. Yeah. There you go. Scoreboard. Okay, so first things first. What I liked about this movie was Wakanda. This country is not just interesting, it is intriguing. You can't help but just look at this country and just go in awe. The whole fusing of future technology and old tradition just makes such a good mix. And you really get the feel that this is a country in peace. This is a country that doesn't know to war. And everywhere you look, there's always something new and interesting to look at. And I also like the fact that even though that this is a futuristic setting, it is not that futuristic. It's not like that they took some piece of Coruscant and just put it smack in the middle of Africa. It is more advanced than our civilization and technology, but it's not impossible ahead of us. Just all in all, Wakanda is just that breath of fresh air that the MCU needed, especially as a setting on Earth. So, props to you, man. The next thing I want to touch upon is how this movie views heroes, or more importantly, the superhero, because the only superhero you see in this movie is Black Panther, and Black Panther is not viewed as a superhero in this movie. No, this is actually his job, his duty. He protects his people and makes sure that bad guys don't get into this country. That is what he does, and I just like the fact that he's viewed as a historical figure instead of a superhero. This is something we haven't seen in the MCU for quite a long time. And I know we kind of saw that with Captain America and Iron Man, but still they were coming from different places before they became this superhero, whereas this is just something you do. This is what the king is trained up to be from the birth. And I just like the fact that they were trying to mix up the formula. Don't make a superhero, make him human, make him something interesting, something different that we haven't really seen before, because that makes it easier to diverge between the superheroes, but also the motivation behind the mask, behind the hero. So that gets another prop for me. Another thing I liked about this movie is the color scheme. The color scheme is extremely colorful, especially when they get to the Wakanda. Yes, at some places it is dark and grayish because it is technology, and technology is often associated with metal, so a lot of gray things. However, there are some beautiful light setting in these grayish environments, and it's only when you are in these technology heavy environments that it's come off as kind of grayish and boring. Everywhere else it is just full of vibrant colors. Everywhere I look, there is colors that pop out, colors that you're not used to see out in the open, which just emphasizes that this is a new, unexplored, uncharted place for the MCU to explore into, to adventure into, to show us. And I think this movie does with colors what Doctor Strange did with settings. Doctor Strange made a lot of abstract settings and made them interesting and almost confusing to look at, whereas this movie makes environment and setting vibrant and full of life. And the MCU desperately needs something that on Earth. We have seen a lot of colors in Guardians of the Galaxy, but since the most of the movies takes place here on Earth, we kind of need some more colors here on the Earth settings. So, yeah. Another thing I want to touch upon is the fact that it focuses a lot on tradition, and more importantly, a country's old tradition that actually helped shaping the country. And just the way that they made all these traditions seem like they originated from a country in Africa. I like the fact that they did their homework on what is tradition in that part of the world, where they are often filled with some ritual dancing, rhythm and pride. And I would love to see more of those traditions and just exploring the culture of this country. Every time they put some traditional ceremony on screen, you felt like the country and its people was given more depth, and I enjoyed every part of it. So I just hope that in the sequel they will dive into more of this tradition and, more importantly, culture of this country, because this is a rich source to take from. So, culture. And last but not least, I like the fact that it doesn't desperately try to tie into the MCU. You get the feeling that it takes place in the MCU, but that is it. It doesn't try to set up the next movie. It doesn't try to set up Infinity War. This is a self-contained story. It is about Wakanda and nothing else. It doesn't care about the rest of the MCU world. All it does is just put in enough characters to tie it into the MCU. For example, Martin Freeman's character, I can't remember who he is, from Civil War, he is in this movie, as well as the end credit scene with the Winter Soldier, and that is it. Everything else doesn't matter. Even though I like the fact that Marvel have built up this big universe, I don't want everything to tie into everything. You just need enough to ensure that yes, this is taking place in the same universe, but that is it. If the other heroes or the other settings is not important for your story, then don't focus on them, don't mention them, they are not relevant. And this movie does this well. So, point. However, this is where my praise ends, because if you've seen my review, you know that I was disappointed. So, cons. I mentioned in my review that there was some wasted characters. One of them is Claw. Why was he in this movie? I know he was set up in Age of Ultron, but he played no purpose in this movie whatsoever. Some might say that he was the reason that Warmonger got into Wakanda. He could get into Wakanda in some other fashion. I mean, he had the fucking tattoo right here, which grants you access at least into Wakanda. Then you will be questioned. I mean, he still arrived in handcuffs, so he just needed to go into the country. But Claw was such an interesting man. You can see that he have been through hell to get that vibranium. He knew something about Wakanda. And now he even has his signature hand, or claw as it normally is, but he has this signature hand which can in fact harm vibranium, or at least Black Panther's suit, which is important because otherwise Black Panther is kinda invincible. You can't hurt the man. He is covered in vibranium, but Claw's gun can. That is neat, because now that means that we have threat against Black Panther. But no, he's just used for some useless, non-important scenes, except for the first one, to get the focus on him for some reason. I don't know why. Why was he important? I mean, again, the Warmonger is... I'm gonna get to the Warmonger. Nonetheless, he gets killed off for no fucking reason. He's just useless. Useless. Fucking hell, man. Stop wasting characters. If a character's plot point is not important, use someone else to fill that shoe. Another thing is the acting. I'm not gonna say that the acting was straight up horrendous, but it was flat as fuck. It seemed like no one actually cared when they were on screen. None of the actors actually put effort into their acting. They was just speaking their lines, doing their actions, and that's it. So you didn't actually find any of the characters interesting. Especially his... what was his name? The guy who wanted Claw dead, or at least have Claw taken to Wakanda, and then it wasn't happening, then he betrayed. That guy. You have no idea who he was. What is his relations with the king? What was his motivation? You didn't know anything about the man because he was just bland. I mean, he never, ever showed emotion at all. At all. Why? This would be one of the director's most important jobs, is to direct your actors to show emotion. If they don't show emotion, you don't care about them, because then you could just replace them with fucking dolls and have the same effect. And that goes for almost every character. Even Andy Serkis' Claw was a bit off. I mean, he was off in Age of Ultron, but he wasn't that much off like a laughing lunatic. But again, I haven't seen that bad acting in the MCU since Thor: The Dark World, and Thor: The Dark World's acting was horrendous. This is just bad. And then you have the Warmonger. He's the big baddie of this movie, and he is nothing. He is absolutely nothing. He's not interesting. He has an interesting setup, actually. I really like his setup with his father being murdered and the whole thing covered up. I like that. It makes you kind of sympathize with this villain. Kinda. Because again, this character is not explored, he's not given depth, he's not given enough screen time. His whole character arc, just nonsense. Everything he did meant nothing, because again, all he wanted was to go into Wakanda and take over the throne, which he had the right to do. He had the fucking tattoo on his lips, which grant him access to the country. We were told that in a flashback. Why do you need everything else to set this character up? At no time did he seem scary, intimidating, menacing, anything. At least the villain in Thor Ragnarok seemed intimidating, because you saw this person mowing down everyone. No one had a chance against her. Here? Nah. He's just a man who's quite good at fighting, but that is it. That is all. He's just a walking waste. You have this great opportunity to set this man up. Here's what I wanted them to do. Exclude Claw for this movie. Maybe make him the villain of the next Black Panther. Focus on the Warmonger because of his connection to the throne. Make him opposing. Make him intelligent in politics. Make sure that every time you see him on screen, you are uneasy, because you know he's always thinking. He's always plotting. Do something interesting with the character, because that will make us root for the hero that much more. I mean, I can't take this anymore. Just put it up there. Another gripe I have is Wakanda. And I know I just put it on the pros, but here's the deal. Here's the deal. Wakanda is interesting for sure, but can you say that you know Wakanda after you left this movie? No, you can't. Because Wakanda is only shown as the backdrop of this movie. And we are talking about a whole new country to explore. This advanced civilization, this culture-rich city. This country begs you to explore it, to dive into its history. You are shown nothing of this country. You're shown nothing except the buildings, the ceremony to make you king, and the ceremony where you drink that purple juice that gives you the strength of the Black Panther. That is it. That is absolutely it. You even go up to the mountains to this clan up here and see the setting and just go, wow, this is intriguing. This is new. I want to know more. Is to put any effort into just show you a little bit. And I don't mean like a documentary where you just go and watch and have a voiceover telling you everything about the country. But I want them to just put hints and details in the background enough for you to catch up on them, but it doesn't take over the narration of the movie. That is what's called efficient world building. This movie needs that in spades, but it doesn't use it. It doesn't do anything with this setting. It doesn't build it up, it doesn't enrich it, it just say, this is advanced civilization that has a rich history, and that is it. You can go fuck yourself. You don't need to know this shit. Look at Black Panther, that is important. Yes, I know he's important, but the world around him is important as well, because if you don't make the world feel real, feel like it breathes, then it just seems like a big fucking green screen that they use at the backdrop of this movie. You need to make the world feel real. They don't make it feel real. They just go, I don't care. So, another one. Jesus fuck. And then you have the action. At least in most of the MCU movies, the action is interesting. It is actually fun to look at. But here, it is boring. When you saw Civil War, you saw Black Panther kick ass like you have never seen anyone do martial arts before in the MCU. That was awesome to look at. And I couldn't wait to see him just mount down bad guys left and fucking right. But you don't. All he does is he takes people, throw them a bit around because he is more stronger than anyone else, and just jump on cars, and that's about it. He doesn't do much at all. And I just can't wrap my head around why. I mean, you have a man who acts like a panther, who attacks with the ferocity of a panther. How can you not make something interesting out of it? He is invulnerable. You can shoot at him. He can jump off from walls. He's fast. He has quick reflexes. Just do something interesting with this man. But all you get is one of the most boring, uninteresting car chase I have seen in a long time. Given the fact though that they used this technology to make his sister driving the car half around the world. How can you not make that interesting? The man just needs to jump from car to car, throw bad guys out and just do something like that. But he doesn't. You hardly need to do anything. You just put the man in this setting and just roll with it. But no, and then there is the fight scene at the end. Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see them fight around the train since their suit was turned off and they were vulnerable in this setting. But everything else, the fight on the surface was just... You have rhinos running around armored in vibranium. You have the warrior woman on one side and her husband on the opposite side. That leads way to some extremely powerful scenes, but no! The more I talk about this movie, the more disappointed I just get. It's fucking unbelievable. And while we're at it, the story. What is the story? What is the purpose of this movie? I just wonder. Yes, it leads into that Wakanda finally gets out of hiding and shows the world what it is, what they're capable of. But that's pretty much it. You don't focus on T'Challa becoming king. It is a plot point, but it's not an important plot point. Because he is king for what? 10 minutes or something. Well, he's king for a longer time, but he's get dethroned pretty quickly, and then the rest of the movie is just him getting his throne back. You have this useless plot point with the vibranium hammer thingy that the warmonger and Claw found in the beginning of the movie they need to sell, which leads fucking nowhere except they get Martin Freeman's character into the plot. That is it. It is unnecessary. Everything in this movie is just unnecessary. It doesn't build character. It doesn't expand character. You know as much about T'Challa when you start the movie as in the end of the movie. He doesn't go on a journey. He doesn't become a better person. He doesn't face some personal demons. He faces some demons from his father, yes. But after those have been resolved, he hasn't become a better man. He hasn't become a better king, a better leader, a better hero. I can't recite this story even if I wanted to, because this story is that forgettable. It has nothing to offer whatsoever. It seems like you have some plot points from the Black Panther series just plucked left and right and just smashed into this movie and just hope that you can get a narrative through there, which they kind of did, but it is just a mess. Nothing is given enough time to develop and everything is just unnecessary. And that is a big problem, especially when you look at the MCU. This is a whole cinematic universe. This needs to tie into something. There needs to be a reason for this movie to exist. Unfortunately, it does nothing except for them to acknowledge Wakanda exists. You can do that in a short movie, especially when you look at how they did it in this movie. There was no big political meeting. There was nothing. He just went up stage and said, this is us. We need to stand together because of course Thanos is going to come in the next movie. And also the fact that there was these tribe leaders. There was no conflict between these tribes except for those in the mountain. And those in the mountain got resolved when you are introduced to them. Why do you even need the warmonger? You could just make a movie around these tribes and make it seem like Wakanda is splitted, and that is one of the reasons that they stay hidden. It's because they need to focus on uniting this country. That could even be the plot point of the movie, that T'Challa's mission was to unite the country, because maybe they didn't seem like he was a rightful king yet. He wasn't able to tackle the task at hand or something, but instead it is just some hurdles for him to get to his throne and then the happy ending, and that's about it. This story is as half-assed as they come. Another bad thing about this movie is pride. And I don't mean pride as the characters showing pride, because the characters are showing pride in this movie. They are a proud people. No, I mean this movie itself. It takes place in Africa, which is known for having proud people. They are proud of their history. They are proud of their ancestors. They are proud of their culture, their religion, whatever. They are proud people. This movie needs to reflect that, but this movie doesn't give a flying fuck about anything, which is why it is half-assed. This movie has no pride. This movie doesn't want to say anything. It has nothing to show, given the fact it's been hyped up to be one of the most important movies in recent time, because you have this movie filled with black people. Just in case you wonder why I always do this, why I say black, is because the people are not black. They're brown, if you don't know your colors. But since we call them black, I go black, because they're not black, they're brown. They're just darker skinned. Not important. But you have this movie filled with black people. And more importantly, you have this movie set in Africa. We don't get enough movie about Africa. We get almost none of it. I know it is a war-torn continent, but still there's a lot of interesting stories to find in the African people and the African continent. But this movie does none of that justice. It has no pride. It doesn't give shit about the setting. It's the story, the characters, the action sequences, anything. It just half-ass everything. And it is because it hasn't any pride in its work that everything is half-assed. And that is why the lack of pride is a gripe in this movie, because when you take out pride, everything is just half-assed. And that is the biggest gripe in this movie. It is not the wasteful characters. It's not the bad acting. It's not utilizing in this interesting country. No, it is. Everything is half-assed. And when a movie is half-assed, you kind of just feeling like you're wasting your time. And that is the worst a movie can do for you. Okay, so 5 against 7, that is not good. Yeah. So this is just some of my thoughts of this movie. I've only seen it once, so I haven't collected that many thoughts around it, but these are the ones that stick out in my mind. So have you seen Black Panther? What is your pros? What is your cons of this movie? Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Whatever you think, comment below and read your thoughts. And always, until I see you in the next video, remember to stay awesome. Bye! I wonder when the Blu-ray comes out. Are they gonna make it purple?